The following is a special video presentation of the Hennepin County Library.
Hello and welcome to a discussion with Dr. Effie Chow. I'm Michael Studer, and my guest today is Dr. Effie Chow, author of Miracle Healing from China. Dr. Chow is the author of this newly released Miracle Healing from China. She is a Qigong master and an NCCA certified acupuncturist, a public health nurse, and psychiatric registered nurse. She holds a PhD in higher education. She currently runs the East-West Academy of Healing Arts in San Francisco and Vancouver, British Columbia, and has served on the ad hoc committee panel at the National Institute of Health Office of Alternative Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Chow.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Chow, because the title of your book is Qigong, maybe we can jump right into what is Qigong.
Well, Qigong is probably one of the most powerful elements of Chinese medicine, the practice of traditional Chinese medicine, and it is about 4,000 years old. And it sports about 4,000 different styles. And Qigong, spelled Q-I-G-O-N-G, Qi is the vital life energy within the individual and also in the universe, or its breath. And Gong means the way we work with it, or the skill with which we manipulate this Qi to facilitate the most optimal health in the individual.
Well, how did you become involved with Qigong? What was it that brought you to Qigong?
Well, actually, I guess Qigong was brought to me because I was born in a traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese family, which practiced Chinese medicine and or families practice parts of Chinese medicine. So I was exposed to it at that time. But formal training came after my nursing training, and I studied in China, in Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and in Canada, and in the United States. And actually, one never stops learning, and it's still working with it right now, even though we're getting such wonderful results with Qigong this time.
Did you have a family member or a grandfather or someone in your family show you this, work with you, lay hands on you or something as a child?
Not really. It was like you grew up in the milieu, so you naturally absorbed all this. And of course, we were admonished for eating bad things, you know. Our diet every day had to be healthy, and we were told, you eat this and it's good for your eyesight, eat this and you have lovelier skin, and eat this, you get a stronger muscles and so forth, you know. So we grew up with the concepts of traditional Chinese medicine, and we were always given herbs if there was something that was wrong. But however, in those days, it wasn't accepted by the general public, and so we kind of didn't speak about it very much. But in this past 20 years, with the advent of acupuncture, you know, that it's become quite to the fore.
So there's been an opening, probably not only from China, but also from the Chinese community in North America, into sharing some of the wealths of the Chinese history and their medical practices. And so that's, as a child, we're able to have that introduction, and then as an adult came across more of a reception to that. How did
I think, Mike, just adding to that is that I'm very thankful for my Western training in the scientific background, and I'm able to look at Chinese medicine from that standpoint, and is able to take the best of both and integrate it together. And that's why I formulated the Chow Integrated Healing System, the particular style of practicing Qigong.
So the Chow system is one in which you come from that Western training and put your traditional history with it and brought it together so that it's explainable to persons who have some esoteric knowledge or an esoteric investigation of Chinese medicine, as well as people who come from a conventional or more Western therapy, and they can relate to it from both directions.
Right, and I'm involved in a lot of policy issues in committees nationally in Washington, D.C., and it helps me kind of determine and facilitate policies in health care and professional health education too, from that standpoint, and taking a look at the multicultural approach too as well, because not only in Chinese medicine, but the Latino population, the Black population, the Native American population, all have specific healing concepts, and we're able to relate through Chinese medicine to some of these other cultures as well. So, but what's exciting about Qigong is that it is not only good for promoting health, and that's primarily the basis of Chinese medicine, is to give us a healthier lifestyle, looking at prevention and health promotion. But Qigong has proven, and from scientific research in China, that it is effective for healing and helping serious conditions such as cancer, AIDS, and cardiovascular conditions, and respiratory problems like asthma and allergies and so forth. And we have ourselves had experience in helping the healing of these conditions too. And in areas of paralysis and like in multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and brain injury and spinal cord injuries from accidents, and people paralyzed from those, and from stroke too as well. We've been able to get them walking, whereas they've been, relegated as hopeless and have been deteriorating. And what is it? It's hard to believe, but the energy concept that Qigong works upon is really very powerful in building up the internal immune system and supercharging the body with oxygen.
That's where the two, and you're talking about an increased aerobic capacity, a buildup of the immune system. That's where
increasing
your
circulation.
Western application is understandable for people who look at it from that way.
And the other thing is the psychoneuroimmunology, that is sort of the new avenue of exploration, is very much in tune with Chinese medicine. We're talking about the influence of the mind upon the body and upon the nervous system and upon the immune system. And so Western medicine and Chinese medicine are really coming slowly, but is coming together to a greater understanding.
It sounds as if you're working with the same body, but two different systems of medicine that in the exploration of the body are now coming together to understand it in a complementary fashion.
Exactly.
And is that what is being desired with the National Institute of Health Alternative Medicine?
Oh, I think so, yes. And I think we have to be careful when we're talking about research, that we're not myopic in the sense that we use only what is accepted biomedically to carry out research, that we must take a look at whether we do have the instrumentation today adequate enough to explore issues like Qi, or the phenomenon of Qi, and also that perhaps we need to allow the practice to be practiced in its natural state, and see what happens and do outcomes research before squeezing into double-blind studies and biomedical research studies and all.
Well, today that word Qi is thrown about in such a fashion that I don't think people really have a clear conception of what we're talking about. Can you give us an idea of what Qi is?
Well, I think sometimes the verbal description doesn't adequately tell what it is, but the Qi is sort of like taking a look at the electrical system in the body, and that myself as a Qigong master, I act like a light switch, helping to turn off and on, or teach the person how to turn on and off their electrical system, which influences everything else. It's the power for all other systems in the body. And then also like the light dimmer, you know, it's just merely on and off. But the light dimmer, you turn it dimmer a little bit and you turn it up more powerful. And so we teach the individuals how to dim it when they're too stressed out and too much energy, too much chi, and then how to build their chi up and build up their internal chi so that it strengthens their immune system and all their bodily functions.
So
and when we talk about bodily function, we talk about physical, emotional, and spiritual.
So
There's no separation.
With
I'd like
that, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'd like to demonstrate, if you, with you, what we talk about, the chi and what a phenomenon it is.
I'm very curious. I'd love to find out what it's about.
Okay. Would you like to stand up? And I'm just going to test you how strong you are.
Okay.
First of all, and then. Okay.
I think we need to drag this over here a little bit so that we don't
Okay.
pull our mics off.
Fine.
All right.
All right. And now, if you put your hands up at forehead height.
Okay.
That's it. And I'm going to, all right, now, I'm going to test how strong you are.
Okay.
We have instrumentation to do the testing.
All right.
And resist my pulling down. And you see, I'm hanging on you.
Yes, you are.
Okay. And you're very strong. Now, I'm just going to touch you in a certain way.
Okay.
And just touching you. Now, up with your arm.
Both of them again?
Yes. And now, resist the same way. And I hardly pushed.
And she hardly
Are you
pushed,
ready?
is right.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay. So what we've done is altered your chi, dispersed it and sedated it. And so now I'll touch you in another way at the same area, but in a different manner.
Okay.
And up with your arms.
Okay.
Okay, and resist now. And I can
And
now.
we're back at
with a thing.
where we were.
And so now I can emit chi with my hands. And this is using my external chi, internal, and emitting it externally. Up with your arms. Same way.
Okay.
Okay, and resist now. Come on, resist. See, he has no chi at all. It's depressed. And so now I'm going to send chi, emit chi in a different way, and up with your arms.
Okay.
Resist. And says, and you're stronger. Yeah. So this is what I teach the clients, the patients, and my students, is how to utilize their chi. And so that if you need dispersal, then we disperse, and if you need a tonification, then we tonify. Okay? So now, that's hard to describe exactly.
I have to agree with you. It's very hard to describe. Your little motion here and the ability to push my arm. I have no resistance. And on a physical level, that works obviously, and to the effect that people can see that. But where are we talking about on a mind and a spiritual level with that?
Well, when you couldn't hold me up, just think what that did to you, kind of emotion, psychologically. And also, when you're weaker in your energy, that means your immune system is lowered.
So that the subtle levels of the body, the immune system, the endocrine system, and so forth, all of that working, that starts to become compromised if we are weakened on a physical level or stressed on a physical level.
That's right.
Those subtle levels of energy, can I use that term, subtle?
Yes,
Is that
absolutely.
a good term?
It is
Okay.
so subtle
Okay.
that they have difficulty yet to measure what the nature of chi is at this point.
So, in other words, looking at chi, we can see it in, like you described, the light switch, but on another level, we look at it interiorly in the body, and the relationships of all of those things in the body there are levels that we still don't understand.
That's right.
So
yes.
is that something that we just have to accept as being there, or?
I think we have to accept the fact that something is happening, but we need to carry out research to determine exactly what the nature of the chi is. And just as in my student and client here, Nancy Pearson, she experienced that, and I think she can tell you in her own words what her problem was and how she experienced this.
Well, if I could do a quick little... this is Nancy Pearson, and she's a registered nurse for 20 years, and she became a a friend and a patient of Dr. Chow's some time ago. Nancy, could you tell us about
I'd be
that?
happy to. It's nice to be here, and it's wonderful to see Dr. Chow. I saw her in August as a client, and 6 months ago, I signed up for a nursing seminar over at Augsburg College that talked about Qigong, and I was very interested for my own personal life because 2 years ago, I developed neurological symptoms where one day I had tingling in the toes. Within 10 days, I could barely walk in my own home and had such changes in mental clarity, in energy, stiffness, my sensory system. The whole central nervous system had been affected by an inflammation that was 9 months later diagnosed as multiple sclerosis, MS. At the time, I had spent probably $10,000 looking for a diagnosis or somebody to help me, and I felt that I saw very reputable medical doctors who were well versed in multiple sclerosis, but last fall, when I said, what can I do to get better? I've only gotten so well. How can I continue to get better? And I was still not able to function as a nurse in the job that I had been doing. And they said, don't spend a lot of money. Things you try probably won't hurt. They probably won't help. And don't expect a miracle. And I cried a river of tears. I thought, what's left? What can I? And I maintain the notion, if my body could become unbalanced, somehow I could rebalance it, and I was looking to discover that, which is what led me to Dr. Chow's seminar. And I went there, and the things that she talked about, the energy, the qi, I had been on a very, in a small way, had been experiencing, I could tell when certain life circumstances gave me energy or took energy away. And here was a woman who had been practicing with these concepts for 30 years. It was like affirmations of things that I was intuitively discovering on my own. But then here was a mentor, a teacher, someone who could be a catalyst for me and speed up my healing. At the time I met her, I was having tremors that maybe lasted 5 hours during the night, total body tremors. Sedation was an alternative, but I wanted to know what I could do. And so I worked with Dr. Chow during the one-day class, and then when I was in San Francisco this summer, I went to her as a client, and I have slowly integrated the Qigong exercises, the breathing, the different kinds of exercises to rebalance qi, acupuncture, and honestly, I'm better. I certainly have been restored in my joy and hope and vigor. Those things are all changing, and it's exciting for me. I'm probably the more eager learner. I yes have my westernized science background of research and nursing, but I've been in a position where I've needed energy, and so for me, I'm open, and that openness has allowed me to get well.
And your tremors that lasted 5 hours?
5. I hardly have them at night. I can get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go to bed at 11, and I would maybe be awake 5 hours. And so it's made a difference in my life. It's been a wonderful transformation.
What do you do? What has she taught you that you do on a daily basis to help yourself, to rebalance yourself?
Okay, to rebalance myself, I use a variety of techniques that I've learned from Dr. Chow. One is diaphragmatic breathing, and the notion of super oxygenating the body. I've experienced that sensation. She has some exercises in her book that she taught me specifically for my own neurological condition that have been helping, and I do those several minutes a day. The meditation, imaging, they're all part. I think being in touch with nature, being aware of all that.
What you're describing then is coming back to that body, mind, and spirit again.
It's a body-mind connection,
meditation,
certainly.
The imagery and actual exercises.
Oh, yes.
So you're supporting and building yourself on all three of those levels.
Yes.
Well, you've obviously had some experience with this, and how long have you been doing this now, her program?
Well, I started probably 6 months ago just really, I'm just a baby. Which is so affirming to this whole notion of energy, because I feel like I've put in a little bit of time and I'm getting a lot out. And as I continue each day, I'm involved in the exercise and the meditation.
So it sounds as if what she did was to introduce into your life the processes that were slowly, or maybe in some cases rapidly, starting to take its toll and affect you and destroy you, and has turned that to where you're now using your environment, both mental, physical, and spiritual, as a way of maintaining optimum health.
Yes, to find my own healing within myself, to discover the dimension of healing. It's a marvelous feeling to have felt hopeless and with nothing to really grab onto, and then to find out that within me I could discover that own healing power. It's quite a change.
Dr. Chow, what did you do for Nancy that, I mean, she said you tailored some exercises for her. Is that something you do when you assess someone, or they come to you, you tailor exercises specifically for that person?
Yes, definitely. And I just want to add another dimension to Nancy, is that, you know, she's a very gentle lady, and I think she's become more more willful and more confident, and just really portray much more. The confidence is what is key. But in working with Nancy or any of my clients, whether it's a young child with cerebral palsy or depression, a person with depression or cancer or whatever, is that I must assess the person. And you can assess their energy level and take pulsation, as in Chinese medicine, and also find out their lifestyle, what they're going through in life, and determine what is needed. And the type of exercise is to be determined by individuals. But in the book, what I've done is given a kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and down to Z, exactly ways to follow, starting with breath and posture, which is the most important thing, and then with visualization, imagery, and then how to work the qi and getting the feel of the qi. And we've had response also from that, from various parts of the country. He says, I was real skeptic. I took up that book and it was really, you know, sort of, I thought, well, I don't know, you know. And they've called and they said, wow, I feel that spongy ball and I feel better, you know.
So people, by purchasing the book and reading the material, are actually able to start working with it and then start doing the exercises that are within the book and feel a response even without the, I mean, it's like you're the silent teacher off in the distance. So that again is working on the mind and the spirit as opposed to the physical. But you also work with people in groups or individually to be able to teach them?
Yes, we do. We teach them in groups, and like in Minneapolis, we're going to have training programs here, starting in on a regular basis. And in a research home in Seattle, we had 15 subjects, and half of them were in wheelchairs, and the others suffered the usual dementias of aging, and they all went off pain medication, they all walked instead of shuffled, and their mind became more lucid, and the people that were in wheelchair, that was over half a dozen of them, they all walked again.
So you had
within 6 months.
Two groups of people that you compared, one receiving...
We had a control group,
one receiving Qigong, one not, and the one person, and they were both the same types of groups, and the one group improved and the other one stayed the same.
They more died from the other group. They deteriorated, and they had a few deaths in that group.
How long does it take for Qigong to be learned? I mean, you talked about it, a lifelong process, but in a daily basis. I mean,
whatever people have. Ideally, I say 1 hour to begin with, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the afternoon. But you know, 10 minutes is better than none.
Sure.
And as Nancy was saying, she did what she can, and sometimes people are more pressured. And in a sense, when they start practicing Qigong, they gain time because they say, I need less sleep, and I'm more organized, and that I gain more hours in the day. And so it's...
so it's kind of a drawing together of people scattered energies about them that it focuses
Comes
on,
back
and they're able to
into a
work with
focus.
that, and it probably carries with them throughout the day as they go
Yes,
about.
yes.
Is that the whole-
And the
Yes.
tension and the, look at all the violence and the terrible situations of our world today, and we tend to cope with that better. It's not that we feel less, but we cope with it better.
Well, there's one question that I'd like to ask, and in many ways people probably think in terms of this as being, because you're talking about body, mind, and spirit, is there a religious aspect involved? I mean, is it a religion? Because it doesn't, to me, it doesn't specifically address that, but I'm sure that some people, because that idea of a spirit becomes confusing, are we talking about a religion?
That's always a question with something that is new to certain people. In China, they were afraid that that would have been a sort of outgrowth of a religious cult. And they did a lot of research. The government spent a lot of money to carry out scientific research on Qigong. And they found that it had a scientific basis and it was not religiously oriented. And that's why it's accepted. Otherwise, it would have been shut out in the government. And now coming over here, we have many people who are Christians. I'm Christian myself. And although I was brought up, in Buddhism and Taoism and all that, so again, combining it all, that it regardless of faith, the Qi, it is universal, and it's been effective in all realms.
So in other words, with you're saying Qi is universal, it's kind of like we can take many different roads or paths up to the top of the mountain, we're still going to look at the same moon.
Exactly.
And that's Qi coming, the moonbeam shining at us.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay. Well, if we can read your book and gain a greater insight into it. And you tour the country speaking in various areas about Qigong and giving demonstrations. And actually, I understand you conduct some classes in various places.
Yes. And in Minneapolis, we're conducting classes through the Shiatsu Center here.
The Minneapolis Shiatsu?
Yes, that's right.
The Minnesota, it's called the Minnesota Center for Shiatsu?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they can get information there.
Okay.
Or else they can always call us at 1-800-775-5300 for information on the book or for other information about Qigong.
Well.
And I'm in San Francisco, and our organization is East West Academy of Healing Arts Qigong Institute, and we'd be happy to help anybody.
Well, it's been a wonderful and enlightening discussion that we've had, and I want to thank Nancy for coming and giving a
Glad
testimony.
to be here.
And probably without Effie, you wouldn't be here.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And may I just say that 8 hugs a day is a very important part of the Chow system, and at least 3 belly aching laughs a day.
Yes.
Besides positive mental attitude, and so you can't overdose on that.
No, you can't.
So,
And actually, there's studies are being shown that hugs and belly laughs are great for the immune
Yes,
system.
exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this has been a discussion with Dr. Effie Chow, and I'd like to thank her today for being with us. And I want to thank you for joining us on, again, a discussion with, and my name is Michael Studer, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
A presentation of the Hennepin County Library.